All right. So thank you, Green Pod presentation. This is Peace Pod. We're looking at nuclear weapons, and I'll specifically be talking about plutonium pit production. And you've already heard a little bit about the upcoming hearings on the pit production draft programmatic environmental impact. So what is a plutonium pit? Plutonium pit is the inner core of a nuclear bomb. As you probably all know, but especially who saw the film last night, it is what destroyed Nagasaki. So plutonium pit, it's the center of a nuclear bomb, and it is also at the center of this current nuclear modernization program that we're in. So it's like the physical core of a nuclear bomb, and also figuratively the entire key and core to this modernization program. It's a choke point to resumed industrial scale nuclear weapons manufacturing is plutonium pit production. So no future pit production is sorry, you can go ahead. No future pit production is to maintain the safety and reliability of the current stockpile. All future pit production is for nuclear weapons for the new nuclear arms race, new design nuclear weapons. And the National Nuclear Security Administration wants to produce 30 pits per year at the Los Alamos lab, at least 30 pits per year at Los Alamos, and at least 50 pits per year at the Savannah River site in South Carolina. And the really key kicker about this is that it's unnecessary, this expanded plutonium pit production. Pits last at least a century, and the US already has at least 15,000 existing pits in storage at the Pantex plant in Texas. So as I already said, new design plutonium pits is for new design nuclear weapons. And as you'll hear more about resumed nuclear testing in the next presentation, I just wanted to mention this point is really important as part of that. New design plutonium pits for new design nuclear weapons brings a massive potential to create pressure for resumed nuclear weapons testing by the United States. These are brand new pits, and these are new design weapons and warheads. Again, this could pressure the US to test these, which would set off a chain reaction of testing by other nuclear weapons powers. And then just a note on deterrence. Yes, we have deterrence, but at the same time, it's a kind of hybrid of deterrence and nuclear warfighting capabilities. The Pentagon has explicitly rejected minimal deterrence decade after decade, time and time again.
Did you define what minimal deterrence is?
Yeah, so minimal deterrence would mean just a few hundred warheads. That's enough. That's enough for worldwide elimination of humanity. Yeah, exactly. A few hundred.
Has rejected that.
Reject that completely. So that's why we have new warhead designs and thousands upon thousands of warheads in our system instead of just a few hundred or hundreds.
We used to have tens of thousands, so it's better.
Yeah. So that's why we have way more than we need, and that's again why we are designing new nuclear weapons. It's war fighting capabilities. It's not, again, minimal deterrence. So deterrence itself is the threat. And yeah, go ahead. So the pit production draft programmatic environmental impact statement. I know that's a mouthful. PEIS is what we call it. The Department of Energy is a chronic NEPA offender. So how did we get to this? How did we get to this point? The NNSA failed in 4 previous NEPA processes to increase pit production. This is our 5th fight against this, and it's the biggest one yet. But we did defeat this before. We can do it again. We wrote to the NNSA 5 times, and we is Nuclear Watch New Mexico, Savannah River Site Watch, Tri-Valley Cares, and another plaintiff is the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition. So we tried to get NNSA to comply with NEPA before having to sue them. They didn't respond, they didn't do it. So we sued them. And the South Carolina Environmental Law Project represented us in that lawsuit. We're very, very grateful for them. And in June 2021, that's when we filed the lawsuit. It took 3 years, but in September 2024, a federal judge ruled that the NNSA had violated NEPA by not doing a programmatic review of pit production. So our settlement mandated a PEIS that begins with public scoping hearing that began with public scoping hearings to determine the range of issues that NNSA should address. These scoping hearings took place earlier this summer. I think go ahead, next one. Yeah, so the scoping comment period ended July 14th. And I think you know, we did a push for making comments. So thank you to everyone in ANA who made comments on the scoping process. And just wanted to make a note that well, sorry. The comments that we made in this scoping comment period, they are obligated to respond to in this draft PEIS. So I would just encourage you all who made comments, when this draft report gets released, go look and make sure that they replied to your comments and your concerns in that document. And then, so the continuing process is we submitted comments, and there were public hearings, virtual public hearings, unfortunately, but had public hearings on the scoping comment period. The draft document is expected to be released early 2026. We're expecting maybe February, March. We don't know if the shutdown would have impacted that timeline. Because it's contractors doing these reviews. So it may still be February, March 2026. We don't exactly know, but I think that's still what we're expecting. So that's when the document gets released, and then a comment period opens, and there will be public hearings. And these public hearings will be in person. And then after this process, the final document will be released. But go ahead. So the hearings, NNSA, as part of our settlement, they are obligated to hold in-person hearings in Livermore, California, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Kansas City, Missouri, Aiken, South Carolina, and Washington, D.C. So again, this will be a big effort. When those hearings are, we really need to drive people to make comments at those, and write comments in during the comment period, of course. But just for some background here, this is I've mentioned it a couple of times already. This is a fully national program. No one is safe from this expanded plutonium pit production madness. The Los Alamos National Lab and the Savannah River site will produce pits. As I said, that's what NNSA has mandated for both of those sites. The Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California is the design agency for the new W87-1 pit. Again, a brand new pit. And the brand new warhead for the Sentinel Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, ICBM. And Kansas City National Nuclear Security Complex supplies the non-nuclear parts and materials involved in pit production. Pantex plant in Texas, as I mentioned, is where at least 15,000 existing pits are stored. And it's where all nuclear weapons are assembled and disassembled. So this is once the pits are produced at Los Alamos and Savannah River site, they go to get all put together at Pantex. The Nevada Nuclear Security Site will test the plutonium pits using subcritical testing. The Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, WIP, is where new transuranic waste from pit production will be disposed of according to the NNSA. So again, I just really want to drill down and emphasize how much of a nationwide issue this is. All of these steps require multi-site coordination and material processing, waste management, qualification, assembly, and transportation. There will be transportation of hazardous materials and radioactive waste across the country. So again, there's no fundamental need for pit production. It is all for new design weapons and warheads. Pit reuse must be considered. In 2006, independent experts concluded that pits last at least 85 years. Their average age is now 42.3. Up to 20,000, 15 to 20,000, as far as we know, existing pits are already stored at the Pantex plant near Amarillo, Texas. Pit reuse must be considered. There's no reasonable option to not at least look at this. So this unneeded pit production obviously is extremely expensive, approximately 60 billion over the next 25 years. And just, a note on at Los Alamos lab alone, Lionel will receive 1.7 billion for pit production in 2026 alone. That is just Los Alamos. And that is direct costs. So add in the indirect costs for pet production, it's even more than that. And on the costs, NNSA has no credible cost estimates or an integrated master schedule, which has been recommended by the Independent Government Accountability Office. It's this cost, as we can all imagine, will just continue to balloon. WIP is already oversubscribed for all of the possible true wastes that DOE and NNSA would like to send to it. It's not clear where future true waste from plutonium pit production will go in the long term. This is going to be a fight for New Mexico, both on Los Alamos lab and on WIP. And again, obviously there are risks to the environment and communities nationwide. I think this group knows probably better than most why it is important to be a part of the NEPA process and provide comments. But I just wanted to emphasize this a little bit. NEPA produces valuable information and increases government accountability and transparency. It can result in tangible benefits for the public and the government. And then this part is important. NEPA processes create a legal administrative record and have led to important litigation going all the way back to 1990. NEPA itself is under assault by Trump. This is a very, very unique opportunity to comment on this massive program. There's no other avenue to get our concerns and comments heard. So we have to use NEPA for this, and lucky for us, we get to. There is no other legally required opportunity that enables the public to comment modernization program, as I just said. So let's transform this pit production PEIS into a public referendum on the nuclear arms race. Thank you. Community's last resources, your friendly ANA member groups, and our info is here. So as I mentioned, Nuclear Watch New Mexico, Tri-Valley Cares, and Savannah River Site Watch, along with the Gullah Geechee Seattle Coalition, but ANA groups, Nuke Watch, Tri-Valley Cares are plaintiffs in this litigation. More than happy to provide any support questions you may have. Just to note, Savannah River Site Watch is a plaintiff, but Tom Clements is not going to be super active on this. So I just wanted to unfortunately make that note, but note that Nuke Watch and Tri-Valley Cares are here for you. As well as Kansas City Peaceworks, Nuke Watch South, and Georgia Wand. And then a couple other resources here. We've been happy to work with Union of Concerned Scientists on this issue. Dylan Spalding produced a report on pit production that's very, very thorough. It describes why pit aging should not be a genuine concern at this point. And then we have a pit production fact sheet as well. some resources there for you all, and then I'll pass it to Scott to talk about testing a little bit. Of course, yeah.
I just wanted to add some icing onto the wonderful cake you prepared here. Um, the scientific reasoning for building new plutonium pits that's been offered by the labs, they're really pushing this, is 10 units at best. This is a primitive, I mean, the plutonium pit, uranium secondary systems that we have, we can't make better with more science. This is really just a reason to keep nuclear scientists trained on designing nuclear weapons. There's no reason they couldn't reuse existing pits. They're just coming up with new design ideas and want to have this factory for nuclear weapons forever. Because right now we haven't built plutonium pits since Rocky Flats was shut down in any large quantity since 1989. And they want to have this factory in place mostly to politically look like we can build nuclear weapons forever. And we need to challenge them on that because it's hugely expensive. It's environmentally dangerous. I think the history of Rocky Flats plant really comes into play here and is something that should be heavily commented on and referred back to. They are taking this line that they could do it safely now. They can't. It's going to have a major environmental impact, and this document will show the environmental impacts that might be expected from it. It's really a time for us to gather experts as well. So if you know hydrologists or other scientists who might cover just a small point of the overall PEIS in their commenting, that would be really useful. So it's time that we start lining that up. This is kind of the culmination of years of work. We filed litigation in 2021. I mean, and then there was these previous NEPA documents. We've been building to this point for years and years, and this is a ANA effort. No one else worked on this. All of the big DC arms control groups never comment on NEPA documents. They don't have standing to sue when there's a problem here because they're not the affected people. We are. Our communities are the ones that are going to be affected from building plutonium pits in Los Alamos and Savannah River, from shipping this material all over the country. This two-site plan means thousands of miles of shipment of material from Livermore to Los Alamos to Savannah River to Pantex. It's going to add thousands and thousands of miles of shipment. So we're the ones withstanding, and we're the ones who are driving this commenting effort. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I have trouble advocating to tell them, well, just reuse this.
Absolutely. We should be also arguing that we just do not need to design new nuclear weapons. But it's that and yes.
Is that a
yes, it's there. So it's arguing that we should be able to maintain nuclear, even if it's a newly designed nuclear weapon where all the other parts, the non-nuclear parts, could be changed. That's what they're doing at Kansas City plant. They're fabricating all the new parts for all of these newly designed nuclear weapons. So they want to add a bunch of capabilities. Like, all of that isn't necessarily tied to needing new plutonium pits. We could do all of that other stuff and reuse existing pits that are stored at Pantex in these newly designed nuclear weapons. So yes, it's an interim step, but I'm not saying don't argue that we don't need to develop new nuclear weapons. Also argue that, but we should be offering, why aren't you exploring reusing pits as an alternative when it's less dangerous, would cost less, doesn't commit us to nuclear weapons forever by building these huge factories.
Yeah, new waste.
It doesn't create all the waste. Still would create some waste.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I totally hear what you're saying and agree. And if we have at the same time, if we have an all or nothing approach, they'll win. So it's like we do have to convince them to be cost effective for their own interests in order to get what we want, which is to stop modernization of nuclear weapons. But yeah, we can argue for both.
Yes, well said. Thank you.
Would you have a few?
Yeah, it's good. On a similar line, the idea that wood is supposed to have space for Hanford waste is a tricky part of this, because you never want to be in the position of saying, just dump it down there. The same dynamic was in place, obviously, when Washington supported Yucca Mountain, which a lot of people in the Northwest found appalling. Elected leaders in the Northwest were under the Yucca Mountain.
Microphone.
Yeah.
Oh, so am I speaking soft?
Oh, Mike is here, yeah, so just, yeah, if you could.
Okay. Anyway,
Make sure.
long
Thank you.
question being is like, how do we say this correctly to say the space is spoken for? Essentially, it's what we want to say, is that right? If we're gonna come in from someplace like Hanford.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
But a couple of questions in the chat. Are the pits already used?
Are the pits that are stored at, well, plutonium lasts for had a half-life of 24,000 years. So yes, these pits have been sitting in other nuclear weapons that were in the stockpile, but thankfully we didn't use them. So, and hopefully we never do. But yes, they are old or from previous weapons. Is there another question?
Can Lori ask her questions?
Go ahead, Lori.
Oh, no, I was just saying that if y'all are doing pricing, you could price like peace programs. Even some of those that were recently cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think bringing up other things we could be spending this enormous amount of money on is a great thing to do in comments. We still need to move forward, but we'll take these two questions and then move forward. Laura.
Just 2 points, one question, and that is, just be a little bit devil's advocate. Even though the half-life plutonium is 27,000 years or whatever it is.
24.
Whatever, so then, it's still that the pit design has a shelf life, just to be, so. I would love to see what evidence you have, because the pits in existing warheads that were built in the 70s and 80s will need to be replaced in like the 70s and, 20s, in the next 50 years, so there is, you know what I mean, like to say that all of the pits will be just for new designed weapons, like I would love to see the evidence for that. I'm not challenging you on that, I just think to say like, well, the pits will last forever because the half-life is 24,000 years isn't really accurate, right?
That's fair. They're already at Los Alamos. They've already had the capacity to build new up to 20 new plutonium pits per year. And to do stockpile maintenance of our existing stockpile, they've only had to do the most is 3 in any given year to take care of a pit. And there is no evidence that they need more than that 20 capacity to maintain the existing stockpile of nuclear weapons as designed in any particular year. So that already exists as capacity and should be enough. It's that Congress has mandated we need capacity of up to 120 per year, and thus must build an entirely so we have to develop the capacity to have 30 plutonium pits per year at Los Alamos and 50 in Savannah River site for a minimum of 80 and a surge capacity to 120. So it's that additional capacity that we do not need to maintain stockpile and reusing pits and the existing pits that are in.
Thank you. And just one, I was going to suggest, okay, this is a tactic used by indigenous people in Hawaii who are faced with NEPA, EIAs, EIS over and over again, and don't have the gratitude or kind of hopefulness in the process that I'm hearing here. And they do not, when they write in for comments, especially in the early stages of the NEPA process, they don't give away their tactics. So they're very tactical about what they say because they don't want them to know what their tactics legally might be. Because they're not on your side. NEPA's not on our side. So it's just kind of like busy work to keep activists busy. That's the way it was hard for me to hear that because I'm all like, that this process is somehow serving us, but I see indigenous activists completely rejecting, like, they do not send in comments, they do not, I mean, this is in Hawaii, I don't know about the rest of the place. It's something to have a conversation about looking at that NEPA process as far as like what you're telling them and giving them, you know, giving away as what your strategy might be after the final EIS comes out. Just
Yeah, just to comment on that a little bit. I agree with especially strategy around like a lobbying or public involvement strategies and protesting. But unfortunately, in terms of a judicial litigation strategy, there, if you don't bring up arguments during commenting, you cannot bring them up in by filing litigation.
that has not
So
been the case in Hawaii at all. They
Okay.
sue, I mean, it doesn't have to be in the NEPA stage, it could be later that they're violating laws.
Sure, but if you're suing under NEPA,
As well, there's
As you would
the issue, so the Marshall Islands took their issue straight to the lower court. because
Yes.
They could do
Yeah.
that.
that's a great example.
And they were denied because they did not exhaust all of their domestic remedies. So we need to go through the process.
Yeah, Frank, so.
Okay, last question.
It's not a question, it's a warning. I'm kind of amused talking about the tens of billions of dollars, which is grotesque. But the Pentagon budget is honestly over $1 trillion now, and that's just the base budget. It does include nukes, that does include veteran benefits, which again, I'm not against them, they are definitely military costs. It does include the national debt, which is almost entirely military, you know, so. Government people in the know will be like to tens of billions of dollars. Just be aware.
So tomorrow we're going to be talking more about strategy for engaging the public in the PEIS, but today we're just laying the foundation for why that's important in our job. Last question, go ahead.
Could you
Yeah.
comment a little bit of what's the big deal about having SRS do this? Yeah. I mean, they have never done this before. Why are they pushing to, you know, what's the motivation for having SRS do this?
Sure, so they needed some space. It could have been at any of the sites. And in fact, in the previous round back in 2010, when they looked for where we might eventually build plutonium pits again, they ruled out SRS at that time, saying it was so far away from Los Alamos and lots of other reasons. But since that time, they began construction on the mixed oxide fuel fabrication plant, a project which they spent $8 billion on before canceling because of other geopolitical stuff and the fact that there was no customer. So Mox never moved forward. So now they have this very expensive, very large facility at Savannah River site that was searching for a new mission. And the powers that be in South Carolina are looking for jobs, etc., and decided that this would be the right site to put new plutonium bit production in.
Does it have anything to do with the big faux pas that they had with that building?
With Mox, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah, it's a bunch of wasted money, so this would give kind of remedy that embarrassment. All right, we'll move on now. Thanks, Sophie. All right, a little bit on the recent developments in nuclear testing. Obviously, we could spend this entire meeting talking about nuclear testing. A lot of people in here know a lot about nuclear testing and about the CTBT and a lot of the history, and I'd love to get more into that tomorrow. We kind of just wanted to give a quick 10-minute refresher, crash course on nuclear testing. So US conducted over 1,000 nuclear tests from 1945 to 1992, 900 or more. What's the exact number, Ian? I think he said 960, 928. Okay.
Yeah, 828 plus 100.
There you go, 928 between 1951 until the moratorium in 1992. All right, next slide. And the rest being in the Pacific, as we saw in the movie. One in Alaska, I think one in like Louisiana or Arkansas or something like that. I think Arkansas, a small one. The moratorium on testing, we had the 1963 Limited Test Ban Treaty, which banned atmospheric nuclear testing. And then in 1992, we started observing the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, or the moratorium until the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty was signed in 1996. We only signed it, we didn't ratify it. Russia did ratify it, but has revoked their ratification as of 2023, which puts them on the same footing as the United States. So now they're just signatories and we're just signatories. And in other words, that makes making the decision to test again and a decision that can be made just by the executive of both governments. Now they don't have to have their legislative bodies decide to start testing again. So in other words, they could make the decision really, really fast. Our technical US posture is that we maintain the Nevada test site with 36 months, needing 36 months to conduct a test, and they call that the readiness posture, 36 months. Although recently the site and NNSA has been saying they could do it in as few as 18 months. That's not like what their official statutory time is, but that's what has been said recently.
And another note about the CTBT was that there was every year there's a UN resolution calling for its entry into force. And this year the US was the sole no vote. Last year we abstained. So this no vote, like, who knows what it signals for the future of testing. And there are very real consequences to nuclear testing, as you guys know. Not only are there geopolitical risks, it can cause other countries to start testing, escalate a nuclear arms race. It also poses very real environmental and public health consequences, as seen from New Mexico to Nevada to the Marshall Islands. The radioactive fallout has killed thousands, contaminated lands, and poses health consequences for future generations as well, which is something that's very scary. One compensation is the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, which provides compensation to only a select group of on-site participants and downwinders who develop certain illnesses after exposure to radiation. So it's a very select group of people and only like a very select group of illnesses. So it is very limited, unfortunately. The states Idaho, New Mexico, Utah, and only certain counties in Arizona and Nevada are included for downwinders and on-site participants. And the compensation for downwinders is like extremely low. It's only $50,000, and that's it.
It just covers to 100,000.
Oh, with the expansion? Yeah, so what Lee's talking about recently, RICA was reauthorized and expanded.
So on October 29th, a little bit out of the blue, Trump made a statement about nuclear testing. He said, because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. This is a very confusing statement in many ways. Since he made this statement, other administration officials have been trying to clarify positions, but also saying that he is intentionally ambiguous and vague, and that's how he communicates, so that our adversaries don't really know what it is we're going to do, as though this wasn't intentional. So we can't really tell if it was. The way in which it wasn't surprising, though, is that Project 2025, the blueprint for Republicans in power, does have in it a section saying that we should reject the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty and indicate, that's it, the direction is to indicate willingness to conduct nuclear tests in response to adversaries' nuclear developments if necessary, which will require NNSA be directed to move to immediate test readiness. Additionally, President Trump's senior advisor, Robert O'Brien, wrote an article in Foreign Affairs after his first administration, calling for full resumption of explosive underground nuclear weapons testing. So in other words, we kind of knew that this was bubbling up underground because of that article and because of Project 2025. But earlier statements in the year indicating differently. So it was a bit of a surprise when this suddenly popped up. I will say there's no new funding in the fiscal year 2026 NDAA for test readiness, meaning they didn't change it for this upcoming budget to make it less time or anything, or to install any new equipment, which doesn't mean they couldn't do some kind of special appropriation to do so, but currently they haven't. One important thing to note about the strange statement with because of other countries' testing programs, no other country has conducted an explosive nuclear test this century except for North Korea, and not recently. If we're trying to look for like a specific thing he may be referring to, it could be other countries' tests of delivery vehicles, like missiles that deliver nuclear weapons from submarines or intercontinental ballistic missiles. All the other nuclear states test their delivery systems. What's strange is that we also have been testing our delivery systems all along the way. In fact, at Vandenberg Air Force Base on election day, they test launched an ICBM to the Marshall Islands, something they do 3 or 4 times a year. So just to make this statement as though there's something new that was being responded to is not likely about delivery system tests. Russia tested a new nuclear powered missile. He could be referring to that as a nuclear weapon, but it is not a nuclear weapon. It could be used as a nuclear weapon. It's a nuclear powered missile. So just we don't know exactly what they're referring to. It's still developing, but we need to be ready to oppose it, whatever it is.
Has one.
That's what he's trying to say, exactly. So thankfully, there has been a kind of legislative response to this, even before Trump's statement, based on the Project 2025 threat that I mentioned. The Nevada State Assembly worked for months with folks from Nevada and others to pass a joint assembly resolution, which was unanimous. Like all the Republicans in the state assembly also voted for it, which seems like a big deal. It urges the federal government to maintain the moratorium on testing of explosive nuclear weapons, regardless of party. They all supported it, and now they're all on the record opposed to resume testing. So it'll be hard for any of them to kind of switch sides now, and so that's good. And no, it just puts them all on record as opposing any resumption of testing in Nevada. And then since the statement was made in late October, the 2 Nevada senators, Jackie Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto, jointly co-sponsored a Senate bill called No Nuclear Testing Without Approval Act. And along with some other co-sponsors from other states, this legislation would ensure that no president can unilaterally resume explosive nuclear testing by requiring congressional approval of any restart to conduct testing. This is so far a symbolic gesture. It hasn't been passed by the Senate, and obviously as a bill would have to be signed by the president, but it's a meaningful statement from the senators of Nevada. And also there is a similar or identical, actually, House resolution that was offered by Stephen Horsford from Nevada. I mention these because there's something we could work on. We could try to get other senators and members of Congress to co-sponsor these 2 bills, have a big showing in Congress that they want to be part of the discussion about nuclear testing. They don't want the president to make a unilateral decision to conduct nuclear testing again. Alliance for Nuclear Accountability did kind of rush to put together a letter about nuclear testing that's on the website. that we sent out to some parties, but it's something that people could also use to, talk to their member of Congress. Here's a letter from the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability if you want to sponsor this legislation, that kind of thing. Go ahead, next slide if there is one. I don't think there is. Okay, we're done.